This is Weirdly Enough, your regular podcast for strange stories and amazing facts, delivered straight to your favorite podcast directory and at weirdlyenough.com. Now, here are your hosts, Andy and Len.
Thank you for joining us for another week. You can get our podcast in so many places. I just wanted to run through it just in case you're wondering where to listen to this. You can get us on Apple Podcasts, so if you have an Apple device, it comes up automatically. We're also on Spotify. If you have an Android phone or anything like that, get us on Google Podcasts. We're on Amazon. You can ask your Amazon smart speaker to play the Weirdly Enough podcast. Stitcher, iHeartRadio for people outside of the UK. I don't think we have iHeart in the UK, but Podchaser, Pocket Casts, Player FM, Listen Notes, Deezer. I know a lot of people use Deezer, Overcast, Castro, Castbox, Podfriend, to name but a few. We're also on YouTube, so you can search for Weirdly Enough on YouTube and listen to it. It's a video file, but there's no video, if you know what I mean.
But it's still pretty stimulating listening, I would say.
Oh, yes, it is. Yeah. So many places to find us. Remember, you can look for us on Facebook. We're Weirdly Enough Podcast on Facebook. Weirdly Enough PC is our Twitter handle. So we're all over those. I really should give Instagram a go sometime, but I can't see why. But
see, I don't know what we do on Instagram.
No. I don't know what anybody does on Instagram. It worries me. It's like that TikTok thing.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening. This week we're going to be talking all about it's dark tourism.
Dark tourism, a very interesting topic.
There was a Netflix show which I watched I think it was called Dark Tourist or something like that.
Yeah.
Was he a Kiwi guy or an Australian guy or something?
I think he was from New Zealand, actually.
Right? Yeah.
He went for different destinations.
I'm just looking it up here now. Dark Tourist, there it is, that's what it's called. Only one series. It was back in 2018. Latin America, Japan, United States. The Stands was a Kazakhstan place like that. Europe, a World War II reenactment. Southeast Asia, Africa, and the United States. So that's well worth a look if you're looking for something to watch on Netflix. Dark tourism, but we're going to be talking all about different tourist attractions that you can go to if you're feeling a bit dark. I don't know why you would, but there you go.
Well, it's an interesting topic, dark tourism. It's a vast topic as well. I was doing it's one of these things, you do a bit of research for it and you kind of go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You really do go down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
An interesting definition I saw, now I can't remember the guy's name, but I stumbled across what turned out to be a university student had done this for like an academic project.
Right.
But it was actually quite a well-produced little documentary on YouTube.
Yeah.
And for like an undergraduate media studies student or whatever, it's pretty impressive little documentary.
So is it actually like a branch of tourism? Are there travel agents?
Well, this is the interesting thing. Now, it's been defined as tourism involving travel to places historically associated with death and tragedy.
Yeah.
It's also been suggested the concept should include reasons tourists visit that site, since the site's attributes alone may not make a visitor a dark tourist. So this argument is it's of historical value,
yes,
rather than just a morbid fascination with death and suffering.
Yes,
and if that's the case, some of our dark tourist destinations wouldn't make the cut.
Okay.
Now, there was an interest, as part of this documentary I watched, a 20-minute documentary on YouTube. He was talking to an academic, and this young lady I think she was a professor at Glasgow University, which seems to have a whole thing to do with dark tourism. I think it was a couple of guys, and is that website? There's a
website called dark-tourism.com.
Yeah,
to look at now,
and it's curated by, I think he's a German guy, a guy called Peter Hohenhaus. He also wrote a book which I fancy maybe getting off Amazon, Atlas of Dark Destinations.
Yeah.
But the website's actually a really good resource because it's like an exhaustive compendium, an ever-growing compendium of sites to go to.
Yes,
it's really quite fascinating. It's very it's quite a dry kind of website, but probably if you're looking to go to some of these places, it's probably a good portal maybe to check out.
Definitely.
But anyway, this young Welsh chap, he was interviewing this academic, and she gave an interesting definition of dark tourism. And her idea was it had, say if it's a site associated with tragedy, it has to be within living memory.
Right.
Therefore, by that definition, anything to do with the Titanic probably is no longer dark tourism. Because it's now outside living memory.
Yes.
Same for World War One.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much sort of getting to the point where it's outside living memory now. And probably also World War Two in the near future will be hitting that buffer zone, you know.
So it's kind of a bit morbid and what you would almost call sick.
It's
in a way, you know.
It's a vast topic, and you know, I ended up yet again on this podcast. Whenever we started getting into this podcast, one of my worries was, how do we get enough material? But it's the opposite. It's cutting through and boiling down the examples, you know, because you can do multiple episodes about dark tourism. But like I said, I mean, some of this stuff in dark tourism, you couldn't really say there's a historical value as such. I mean, there's one here, Chernobyl is a big one. Now, it's basically over the past 20 years, visitor numbers to Chernobyl have exploded. It's become like a whole thing. And according to the Australian newspaper, the Sydney Morning Herald, in 2008, 7,500 tourists travelled to the exclusion zone and spent about £130 per day. So it's becoming quite a big thing.
Okay.
Now, there's been a bit of controversy around Chernobyl. In June 2019, a Twitter user named Bruno Zupan shared 4 photographs of people purportedly visiting Chernobyl. One in particular showed a woman in a hazmat suit who then unzipped the hazmat suit to expose her underwear.
Right.
So she was in the middle of, you know, like Pripyat or whatever, and she's running around in the hazmat suit kind of flashing. Okay. And sticking it on the socials.
And this offended the powers that be or something, or?
It's sort of, like, I don't mind a bit of slashness, but I think it's kind of in bad taste, to be honest, you know. It's like the people that go to Outswitch and things like that, and they're like grounding and stuff like that, and you know, behaving sort of inappropriately that way, like, you know.
It's like what you were talking at the start, though, and I wanted to come back to Outswitch. You were saying that some sites, although they could be dark tourism sites, are visited for other reasons, and I think that's Outswitch is a great example of that. You know, people go there not to be morbid, but to have a reminder of the atrocities that were committed there.
Because it's a densely historical site. I mean, you could be going there for academic purposes, you know, to do like research and things like that, you know. But there's a good quote actually from this guy Peter Hohenhaus, and he thinks it applies to many dark tourism spots. He says, if you've encountered and dealt with sites that are very much propaganda-led, like Nazi sites, communism sites, and so on, then you can see through propaganda better. You recognise it, so it gives you an advantage outside the tourism sphere. What basically he's saying, it sort of enriches your intellectual side of things if you go. It's educational, basically. Like, you know. Now, we don't have to go too far. If you're talking about dark tourism, Belfast, for example, I mean, what is...
Black taxi tours.
What? Yeah, and I mean the classic one that overlaps with what we were talking about a few weeks ago was LittleDean Jail.
Yes.
What is that if not dark tourism? Basically, like, you know,
it's the very definition of it. And if you go to that darktourism.com website, that is one of the main things that they talk about. They talk about the black taxi tours, Crumlin Road Jail, Titanic tours. I recently took some visitors to the Titanic Museum, and it's no way morbid or, you know,
not really, no.
You know, glorifying or you know, poking your head in at the tragedy. It's the Titanic is a very good exhibition for finding out what life was like for the people that built those kind of ships, and it's less actually about the tragedy and about the ship. Whereas I've been to other Titanic exhibitions. Branson, Missouri is a notable one, and it's very kind of, you know, Rose and Jack kind of stuff, you know. It's making quite a lot of the tragedy and of the people that were on it, you know.
It's very much the myth of the Titanic rather than the actual reality.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. So I'm certainly, I would advise people that are visiting Belfast to go to the Titanic exhibition.
Well, anyway, I was looking at, again, there's loads of Belfast taxi tours. There's one here called Chopper's Authentic Cab Tours.
Chopper?
Now,
is that Australian film?
It's the guys whose name, I think. Yeah.
Right. Uh-huh.
Now this came out of the pandemic. In May 2021, Chopper found himself in financial hardship after falling into debt at his job working for a big taxi firm. Now, as he grew up, Chopper he's had very many diverse kind of job roles. He's been a joiner, a boxer, an electrical engineer, and obviously a taxi driver.
Mm-hmm.
At the age of 24, however, he went to prison. But he used his time there wisely because he became fascinated by the conflict in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And he got educated in history and politics and whatnot. So he was in a bit of a tight spot with the old COVID
Right.
scenario. So he thought, well, coming out of that, rebuilding everything, he thought, well, why not combine his taxiing skills, his local knowledge, and his political, historical
Definitely, yeah.
knowledge, and also hail the broken land as well, because he's trying to give both sides of the conflict,
yes,
and prevent the youth of both the troubled youth of Ireland from fighting each other, etc. He says, a few friends of mine were taxiing at Belfast City Hall and they were telling me about the black taxi tours, he said.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up asking me a lot of questions as they knew what I studied and knew I had a lot of knowledge about the Troubles. So I ended up starting to try it. I thought Tiffany to get a taxi badge. Eventually got that, rented my first taxi, then I ended up doing political tours for other people. I didn't like the way certain companies were doing them, a wee bit one-sided. So I stopped doing them for maybe about a year and focused on another business. Now, it all went pay-tongue because of coronavirus, so I decided to restart his taxiing ventures. So he set up Chopper's authentic cab tours with a view to have an authentic, ground-eye, non-biased view of the conflict and the sites. So
but
yes,
can anything be unbiased?
Well, I at the age of 42, I've decided that everybody has their own truth.
Yeah.
There's many different facets to everything. I mean, for example, no two people perceive colour the same way.
No, that's it.
So think about that. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? And then apply it to the wider society,
I tell you what, I think we're missing a trick. I think we should be changing jobs here, because I'm on getyourguide.co.uk and it has a lot of these tours. One of them, an hour and a half, £100 a person.
Really?
And how many could you cram in the back of a black taxi?
Oh, aye.
Outside COVID, yeah.
And all you need to do would be just watch a few of them Troubles documentaries and old YouTubes, and you'd be ready to go.
It's wall murals in the Peace Wall. So you just take them up and show them that. Yeah. Way to go.
See, the love all that sort of stuff,
But
it's great.
The other side of this dark tourism is what local people think of it. What do people... Okay, there's maybe not that many people living very close to Chernobyl, but people that were affected historically by Chernobyl, people even in the Belarusian side, isn't it? Is it in?
It's in Ukraine, but it actually affected Belarus kind of more heavily because it just all of Belarus kind of got hit bad.
And I know I've talked to a lot of people in Belfast who are upset by. And on both sides of the divide are upset by the fact that these tours are happening, because they're going past bomb sites, and one of the things I was reading about on darktourism.com was about the Oma bombing, and it was directing people to go and see the memorials and stuff to the Oma bombing, which is still very, very heavily in people's memories. And you can see how it can cause offence.
I think that's the problem with the Troubles, because the Troubles only very recently ended.
Yeah, that's it.
You know what I mean? It's not like something that happened in the 1890s. It impacted on multiple generations of people. And I think it was a Sex Pistols. Was it a Sex Pistols song? And it was something about a cheap holiday and over people's misery.
That's good.
And that's sometimes. I mean, I say these open top tours going through the, all these areas, and I'm thinking it's a cheap holiday and over people's misery.
Yes.
People have to live in this.
Yeah.
I've got very mixed feelings, because I've always had a love of history and a fascination with things like that, and I can see the fascination. I can see guys like Chopper who want to earn a few squid.
Yeah.
And at very difficult times. That's fair enough. I don't begrudge the man.
Why not?
Like earning a £1 note. Exactly. But at the same time, we need to approach this with a certain amount of sensitivity.
Yeah.
So can we move from the sublime to the almost ridiculous?
Okay, let's move on.
There's a place for all my moral posturing. To be fair, actually, no. Before we go, there's a good quote here from Chopper.
Yeah.
This is something I think you should take away from this podcast recording and apply it to your own life. As long as you can laugh at anything, you can get through it. That's the way this city is. Without that bit of banter, you'd be worse off. So I want you to take that advice to your heart.
Yeah.
And take it free life of you, you know.
Can we go on and have a look at LittleDean Jail? Is that what you were?
Yes, LittleDean Jail is I don't know how do you describe LittleDean Jail? It's something else.
Where is it? The Cotswolds or it's Gloucestershire or somewhere? Is it
tucked away in the road between somewhere called Alton and Cinderford in Gloucestershire? It's in the Forest of Dean. Okay, yeah. So it would be kind of like it's in the West Country of England, southwest of England. And the guy that owns it he's a wonderful accent. He sounds like a character, you know, from that BBC show, This Country. Oh yes. So he talks like that. So given some of the topics that he gets involved with, it's quite interesting. But basically, LittleDean Jail was used to house criminals from the Forest of Dean up until sort of 19th century. Right. And those were guilty of everything from petty theft to witchcraft. But today, behind the tall stone walls, there's something slightly more peculiar, and it is really unreal. I would recommend, after listening to this podcast, if you look it up on YouTube or on the web, check out the website. It's unreal.
No, I'm on it here at the minute. The strange thing about LittleDean Jail is how many tangents he's going on. Because he's got, you know, like history of the SS kind of stuff. Then he's got Charles Bronson. Yes. KKK. Yeah. British forces. Then there's a memorial to the woman that was killed during the Iranian embassy. Yes. Isn't that right? Yvonne Fletcher. Yeah. There's stuff about witchcraft. It's basically stuff about the Peaky Blinders he's got. Yes. Basically, if you could imagine a very morbid sort of 15-year-old boy that's kind of a bit spotty, and he wears overcoats, and he kind of spends too much time in his bedroom. Okay. Yeah. And his morbid kind of interests, but projected on like the scale of a museum. Yeah. As you know, if you give that boy like you know, a massive, well, not a massive, but a few squid, and says, "Go and fill a museum with your morbid curiosity." Yes. LittleDean Jail would be kind of the result of it. It's run by a guy called Andy Jones since 2003. Now, Andy's been, funnily enough, about the morbid teenage thing, he's been collecting macabre items since he was 13. Right. So whenever he was a troubled teenager, he sort of, as many teenage boys that kind of have sometimes morbid interests, you know, so this kind of writ large. This museum is a dark tourism favourite. It's got everything from Nazi memorabilia, stuff about ISIS, right, corridors that feature notorious criminals, mutated stuffed animals. Yes, I saw some of those. Random stuff about the occult, and smutty tabloid stories that he's cut out himself for like decades out of like the Sunday Sport and the Sun, and you know, about like ministers having it off with rant boys and things like that, you know. And he's randomly, because I think he calls it like the scandal of politicians or something like that, and he's plastered it all, and stuff about quadrophenia. There's like random stuff about pop culture as well. That's the thing that kind of takes me to the fair is quadrophenia, and there he is photographed with a grimacing Phil Daniels, a slightly uncomfortable looking Phil Daniels. Like he's kind of saying, "Can I go now?" But I want to meet Andy Jones. I think this is fantastic. You say I'm actually sort of kind of thinking about maybe taking a trip to LittleDean Jail maybe next year, right? On a special assignment from the podcast. I want to hear an interview with him. Yeah, I want to do like a special report. Now he lives above the museum with his wife, and I'll not do that. Can you do? I don't know if you can do the accent, but he goes, she tolerates it. He says, it's not everyone's cup of tea living in a home like this. I'll tell you what, she tolerates it. But it's not everybody's cup of tea living in a place like this. See, you can get this really well. Yeah, he sounds very like that, also. He sounds quite like that. Because check him out on YouTube, he does have that kind of accent, like, you know. I have been listening to Daisy May Cooper's audiobook, maybe that's why. Now, he's never actually seen the Peaky Blinders. But
randomly
Stop him.
he
Yeah.
has up like a flight of stairs. He's got like Tommy Shelby's coat
Right.
and like
yeah.
all this random stuff, but like mixed in with like real stuff about the real Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders.
The thing that's hard to convey, it again, unfortunately, this podcast isn't very visual, but
No, because it's audio.
we'll do our best.
Yeah,
but what I'm
yeah.
saying is, if you check out the footage and check out the pictures, the overwhelming thing that you get from LittleDean Jail is not only are the topics random, they're randomly put together without rhyme or reason. So you're literally turning, oh, there's like a portrait of Heinrich Himmler.
Yeah.
And then you're looking that way, and there's all this like tabloid smut. And then you look up there, and there's Tommy Shelby's coat. You turn round, and then there's Ronnie Cry's overcoat.
Yeah.
It just gets crazy. There's mannequins with full-length suits from the series Peaky Blinders. Plenty of space inside the former jail, and they can display large items as well, including a two-headed cow. Now, get ready to do the accent. It's an Aladdin's Cave of Curiosities.
I'll tell you what it is. It's Aladdin's cave of curiosities.
The bizarre, the taboo, the quirky, tongue-in-cheek, it's all here.
They've got Albert Pearpoint exhibition.
Oh yes. I mean, not that doesn't surprise me.
I listened to Frank Skinner's podcast, and one of the regular contributors to that is somebody that writes in who is like the granddaughter of Pearpoint or something.
Right, yeah.
And shares Pearpoint facts.
Did you ever see that documentary drama of Timothy Spall on ITV? That was quite good.
Might have, I don't know. Yeah. Very good.
He once apparently executed Irma Gross, who was, I believe she was known as the Bitch of Biggenwald.
Alright.
But she wasn't a very nice young lady. But apparently she says, oh, she was very brave apparently.
Yeah.
But she was a bit too handy with, you know.
Yeah.
Well, not even go there. It's getting quite unpleasant, this podcast.
Yes.
I'll say. This is, I blame Andy Jones and the LittleDean Museum. Let's see. Where are we here?
I think we had time to go on and talk about the Atlas of Dark Destinations. Did we cover that?
We already did. Can we
Okay.
do a little bit more about LittleDean Jail? 'Cause
Yeah, okay,
I do
okay.
so like it, you know. He's had a lot of problems. He says endless, everything. He grumbles. Do your accent there.
Everything. No, I'm not doing it again.
Death threats. We've been raided by the establishment. Items confiscated from the establishment by Scotland Yard. Oh god, it's just now. It does get quite dark. There's a blue pattern tie-in display, which looks identical to the one Fred West is wearing in a tabloid cutting next to it.
Right.
And it's just one of several items on display relating to Fred and his wife Rose. And you should see the display devoted to Fred and Rosemary West. It's
Gee.
unreal. It's quite bad taste.
He's got some stuff by the Witchfinder General.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now there's a bizarre quote about the purchase of the tie, and the purchase of this tie can actually be seen on an episode of the Netflix documentary series.
Right.
And he says that was actually quite freaky on the day.
Sorry, your foot's hitting my
Sorry.
microphone stand. I was trying not to draw attention
Sorry,
to
I've got like a wandering foot.
It's probably making noises and
Oh dear.
yeah. Oh, they've got a Doctor Who dialect.
Right. Where were we? Yeah, it was actually quite freaky on the day, said Andy. A couple of guys turned up with the tie. This is Fred West tie.
Yeah.
And the newspaper in Providence without getting it tested. Fred had only 2 ties that I knew of, and that was one of them.
Right.
Andy claimed he had a few insider details that submitted to Providence, but refused to divulge what those details were. It's the nature of the beast, said Andy, who says a lot of his continued business relies on trust. So yeah, it goes on, and there's Charles Bronson's suit that he wore in prison and all that kind of stuff, you know. Yeah, all very dark. Anyway, where are we? Do we have time to do McKamey Manor?
Oh yes, let's please. You've been going on about McKamey Manor for quite some time.
I've developed what was probably a borderline unhealthy fascination with it, to be honest.
Right.
It's just horrendous. It's hard to even describe what McKinney Manor is. Basically, it's supposed to be a haunted house attraction,
Yeah.
but it started off as an extreme haunted house, but it's sort of mutated into this kind of weird survival endurance kind of thing.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of videos of it on YouTube where he's like shouting at people and screaming at them and threatening to cut them and stuff.
And like drown them and stuff, you know. Now, McKamey Manor is found in San Diego by Russ McKamey, but I think they've moved on to like Tennessee or something due to the local law enforcement starting to take a bit of an interest. The house operates year-round, offering visitors a tour that can last up to 8 hours. Now, basically, if you want to go to McKinney Manor, you need to sign a liability waiver to participate. And you can get this, you can actually download the PDF on the internet. It's mad, it goes on and on.
It's like the most extreme escape room you've ever heard of, like, isn't it?
Yeah. Items on the waiver include the inability to leave the experience without the staff's permission, so they won't let you go.
Right.
If you beg, they won't let but once you pass a certain point, they won't let you go. So it's kind of like false imprisonment. But, and you have to agree to being subjected to various forms of physical and psychological torture, including having bones broken, teeth removed without anesthesia, and being drugged.
Wonder how much of that has actually ever happened at it.
You see, it's hard to say, because the weird thing about it is, I mean, I've heard there's a lot of attack videos on YouTube now of people saying, oh, isn't this horrendous, and a lot of whistleblowers from people who very foolishly see. There's people that sign for it who are very naive and don't do their due diligence, and they don't research, and they don't realise what they've got themselves into. There's another type that are very very arrogant and think, oh, I'm dead tough, I can do anything. But kind of when the reality hits, that's maybe not the case.
Push comes to shove, etc.
Because like the experience of it is a lot more real than just watching it online, like, you know. But basically, the house permits just a handful of patrons each weekend. Now, this is where it gets very strange. What do you suppose the entrance fee is for the tour?
I think you have to buy dog food or something, isn't that it? Yeah.
I sort of assumed, it'd be like, I don't know, 150 for the day or something like that. But no, it's like free. You just have to provide dog food for the pet dogs. At the Tennessee location, guests must be 21 or older, or 18 to 20 with parental consent. Right. The tour lasts from 8 to 10 hours, but no guest has ever got to the end. Right. Apparently, there was a US Marine that came very, very close, but Russ had to end the tour because it was getting too dangerous, because the guy wouldn't kind of brag. Because he's like a Marine. But he was getting to the point where he was like near drowning and stuff, and he was like, well, I don't really want to kill this bloke, like, you know, and be done for manslaughter, like, you know.
It's crazy that people want to put themselves through this, you know.
The waiting list, they say, is over 24,000 people.
Right.
20. And apparently it's got even tougher now, because to enter you have to go contact the Facebook group. And then there's a waiting list on that, and then before you're even allowed to do it, you have to do various humiliating tasks and record it before you're kind of considered to be up for it, like, you know. The latest version of the tour, a 10-hour experience called Desolation, offers a prize of $20,000 for successful completion.
Well, that's never happened.
Now, McKamey deducts $500 from the prize for every failed challenge or the use of profanity. Because that's one of the things he always says, no cussing.
No cussing.
And if you cuss, he gets very annoyed. During the tour, employees of the manor may physically assault patrons, waterboard them, force them to eat and drink unknown substances, have them bound and gagged, and engage in other forms of psychological and physical torture, basically. And you've seen the videos. What did you think of the videos when you saw them?
Crazy. It's the strange people that actually go there, you know. Yeah.
And one of the things that I don't know if it's part of the whole mind game, is whenever you turn up, you have to either dress in a onesie.
Right, yeah.
So they're all dressed like kind of overgrown toddlers. Or else, sometimes if it's Christmas or Halloween, you have to like Russell dictate that you have to wear like a dress as an elf or something like that, you know. But again, I think that's part of the whole humiliation. So, what do you think that, you know? Because I'm very curious to know what do you think would people's motivations be for something like that?
I don't know, just to kind of survive something, or maybe they've had traumas in the past, and this is their way of dealing with it. I don't know, but
it's an absolute fascinating subject.
Frightening to delve into that. They were featured on the Dark Tourist Netflix series that we were talking about there. It's only episode 8 if you want to know more about that. This podcast isn't really based on that TV series. We didn't watch it and then decide to go and do this podcast.
No.
It's just kind of, it's something quite interesting where you can pick up a lot of what we've discussed here today. I think that's about time to wrap it up. Is there anything more to look at?
I think that's really it, isn't it? Like,
We'll be back after a short break with this week's Weird Shorts. You know what they say, dogs are a man's best friend. But in this case, I don't think that includes neighbours. I'll tell you what this is all about anyway. It started when Maribel Soleto bought a new puppy in a pet shop in Lima in Peru. The puppy was named by the family as Run Run, and all was well in the early days with the animal playing with other dogs around the neighbourhood. However, as the pet grew, he started to get a fondness for chasing and killing the neighbours' ducks and chickens. Turns out it wasn't a dog at all, but an Andean fox.
Right.
And in keeping with his name, the animal did run away and is now being sought by Peru's ecological police.
Right.
So they've got an ecological police in Peru. They want to capture him and put him in a zoo. You think they just let him go off into the Andes? So there you are. We all love those Atari classic games like Breakout and Centipede. You remember those?
Oh, wow, yeah.
They really were fantastic when compared to the modern rubbish like Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto. They kept your attention for so long. You'd spend seasons playing them, just getting no sleep and no food, just sitting playing those bat and ball things.
And that would have been the 80s they came out.
Yeah. Well, there's a professor here from Dartmouth College called Mary Flanagan. She's created a reworked version of the popular console, but it features a 9-foot tall joystick.
Right.
Games can only be played by multiple people, and Professor Flanagan hopes the device will encourage people to play games with friends or even strangers. Don't know how that works with social distancing.
A 9-foot joystick?
It's 9 foot tall, and you have to hold it like that. Yeah, it's like taller than you are, and you kind of move it about.
How's that going to fit in your house?
I think it's an art installation kind of thing.
Yeah.
The giant joystick has made it into the Guinness Book of Records. And here's one that should be in the Guinness Book of Records too. It's a man, he's endeavouring to collect a chip or French fry for our American listeners from every branch of Weatherspoons in the UK.
Why?
Well, why not? It's no mean feat though. There's 925 branches of the pub chain throughout the country.
And how is he going to preserve these chips?
This is it. To avoid the chips going mouldy, Boris Bennett is coating them in Vaseline and wax to make them last longer. Then he's collecting them in a trading card collection wallet book.
But why is he doing this? What is the because it's not like, it would make more sense if, right, I'm going to collect a chip from every pub from Brighton to Dundee.
Yeah.
But no, that's not what he's saying. Only Weatherspoons.
Only Weatherspoons, yeah. Well, I think it all started off because there's like a Facebook, or it might be a Reddit kind of thread where people have a go at the size of the chip portions in Weatherspoons, and people are complaining they only got like 5 chips and stuff with a meal. So he's decided then he's going to go around and collect all these chips.
Do people not have any idea about like how things work? It's like, it's cheapest chips.
Yeah,
Weatherspoons that really cheapest chips.
How much is a meal in Weatherspoons?
I don't know. It's been, I haven't been since the global pandemic hit.
Okay.
I'll probably venture forth.
Yes.
Maybe when I'm off. I don't know. But just the mind boggles. It really does. What's he like? Is this art or is this?
No, I don't think so.
Charity or? He's
thrilled that they've taken an interest in his collection. They commented that Boris is one of a kind. They went on to say that they have many fans who enjoy visiting all their locations. Some take photos of the carpets at each Weatherspoons. Look at that carpet, all the design on it. He says he's thrilled and he'd love to one day shake the hands of Weatherspoons founder Tim Martin.
He's a character, isn't he? I'd love to get him on the old podcast, you know. Talking of Reddit, have you ever been on Reddit?
No, I haven't, no. I think it's come up in search results maybe.
Yeah, I downloaded a wee Reddit up for the purpose of research. And it's quite interesting. You do kind of fall down some sort of strange
rabbit holes,
yeah. Like our prepping. That's a weird one. Or our prepper intel.
Right.
That's a community of the paranoid.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
So far, Boris has received over 18,000 reactions on Facebook and over 100,000 on both TikTok and Instagram. So he's quite popular with his chip collection.
You see, this is one of these stories that just, why? I just can't get my head around it at all. It's like the 9-foot joystick.
I know.
It's like, what are we saying? You know?
Crazy. Well, that's your lot for Weirdly Enough this week. Remember to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we will be back next week. We're going to talk all about celebrity conspiracies.
Thanks for listening to Weirdly Enough. Remember to subscribe to get the latest edition as soon as it drops. And don't forget to leave a review. Email us about anything we've discussed or with your own weird tale at podcast@weirdlyenough.com.